Picture this: a world on the edge of chaos. Enemies lie in wait beyond every border, uncertainty clouds the horizon, and survival demands not just strength, but an unshakable faith. In this harsh reality, one man steps forward, not as a king, not as a prophet, but as a warrior whose actions carved a legacy of courage and trust in God. His name is Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada. At first glance, Benaiah might not seem like the most famous figure in the Bible. His name doesn't carry the weight of David or Solomon. But when you look closer, his story reveals something profound: a man whose life was marked by extraordinary faith, unwavering loyalty, and a boldness to confront the impossible. Now, take a moment to reflect. What battles are you facing today? Maybe you're staring down overwhelming obstacles, financial struggles that keep you awake at night, relationships fractured beyond recognition, or the creeping shadow of self-doubt. These are your lions, your seemingly insurmountable challenges. Benaiah's story teaches us something critical. Greatness is not about the absence of fear, but about the willingness to act in faith despite it. Imagine stepping into a snow-filled pit with no way out to face a roaring lion, or standing before a towering, heavily armed warrior while holding nothing but a staff. Benaiah did these things not because he was fearless, but because he trusted that God's strength was greater than any enemy. This isn't just a history lesson. Benaiah's story holds a mirror up to our own lives. It challenges us to ask, how do I respond to my own trials? Do I step back in fear, or do I move forward in faith? Maybe you're feeling unprepared for the battles ahead. That's understandable. Most of us do. But Benaiah's life is proof that God doesn't choose the qualified. He qualifies the chosen. With faith, he transforms ordinary people into extraordinary vessels for his purposes. What if you could face your own lions, giants, and snowy pits with the same courage that defined Benaiah's life? In this video, we'll explore the remarkable story of this unsung hero. Together, we'll walk through the defining moments of his life, from his upbringing in a challenging and uncertain world to the heroic feats that made his name unforgettable. We'll uncover the deeper lessons behind his actions and the timeless truths they reveal. You'll witness how Benaiah took on 2 Moabite warriors in an act of unmatched bravery. You'll feel the icy chill of the snow-filled pit as he confronted and defeated a lion. And you'll marvel at his ingenuity and faith as he faced a giant Egyptian warrior, armed with nothing but a simple staff. But Benaiah's story doesn't end on the battlefield. His life extended into the courts of kings, where he became a trusted leader under David and a symbol of justice and loyalty under Solomon. His journey shows us not only how to win life's battles, but also how to lead with integrity when victory comes. This video is more than a story, it's a call to action. As we unfold Benaiah's life, you'll discover how his courage, faith, and leadership can inspire you to face your own challenges. By the end, you'll have the tools to confront your fears, overcome obstacles, and lead with purpose in your own life. So, as we begin this journey, ask yourself, what lions are you facing? What snowy pits seem impossible to cross? And how might Benaiah's faith in God's power give you the strength to rise above them? Stay with us, and let Benaiah's story remind you that no challenge is too great, no enemy too strong, and no obstacle too overwhelming when you step forward in faith. Because, like Benaiah, you too are called to greatness. To truly understand Benaiah's remarkable feats and his lasting legacy, we must first look to his roots, his upbringing, his influences, and the challenges that forged him into the man he would become. Born into the tribe of Levi, Benaiah's lineage carried a deep spiritual significance. The Levites were the appointed servants of God, responsible for upholding the law, ministering in the temple, and guiding the people in righteousness. But for Benaiah, this calling would extend beyond spiritual leadership. It would shape his destiny as both a warrior and a man of unwavering faith. Benaiah's hometown was Kabzeel, a border town in southern Judah near Edom. It was a place of constant tension, where the line between safety and danger was razor-thin. The region was frequently threatened by raiding enemies, and survival required vigilance, strength, and courage. Growing up in Kabzeel meant that Benaiah's life was shaped by the harsh realities of living on the edge of conflict. These circumstances would sow the seeds of resilience and bravery that would later define his life. Benaiah's father, Joiada, played a crucial role in his formation. As a prominent Levite, Joiada was deeply rooted in God's law and committed to instilling its principles in his son. But Joiada's teachings extended beyond Scripture. Recognizing the challenges of life in a border town, he also trained Benaiah in the physical disciplines necessary for survival, combat skills, endurance, and the strategic mind of a warrior. Imagine young Benaiah learning to balance the spiritual wisdom of the Torah with the practical skills of a fighter. His father's influence wasn't just about preparing him for war. It was about shaping his character. Joiada taught Benaiah that strength without faith is reckless, and that faith without action is empty. These lessons became the bedrock of Benaiah's identity, a warrior whose courage was fueled by his trust in God. Life in Kabzeel was no sanctuary. The town's proximity to enemy territories meant frequent raids and battles, forcing its inhabitants to develop a warrior's mindset simply to survive. For Benaiah, these hardships were not just obstacles, they were opportunities for growth. Every skirmish, every narrow escape, and every moment of uncertainty refined him, teaching him to rely on both his skills and his faith. It's easy to see how Kabzeel's environment contributed to Benaiah's legendary courage. In a place where fear was a constant companion, he learned to face danger head-on. Where others saw threats, Benaiah saw challenges to be overcome. This resilience became a hallmark of his life, preparing him for the extraordinary feats he would later accomplish. Benaiah's dual training, spiritual and physical, set him apart. Many warriors of his time relied solely on their strength and tactics, but Benaiah understood that true victory came from aligning one's actions with God's will. His upbringing in a Levitical household gave him a deep understanding of the covenant between God and Israel, a foundation that guided his decisions and actions throughout his life. Physically, Benaiah's training was rigorous. Under his father's guidance, he honed his skills with weapons, developed his endurance, and cultivated the discipline needed to excel in combat. Yet, his training wasn't just about technique. It was about the mindset of a warrior who fights not for personal glory, but for a higher purpose. This combination of spiritual grounding and physical readiness made Benaiah a rare and formidable figure in Israel. Even as a young man, it was clear that Benaiah was destined for more than an ordinary life. The trials of Kabzeel and the teachings of his father shaped him into someone who could rise to meet extraordinary challenges. But Benaiah's calling wasn't just about his own growth. It was about preparing him to serve God's greater purpose. The Bible often highlights how God uses ordinary people to achieve extraordinary things. Benaiah's origin story is a testament to this truth. He wasn't born into royalty or privilege. He grew up in a small, dangerous town, guided by a father who saw his potential and instilled in him the values and skills he would need to fulfill his destiny. Benaiah's early years laid the foundation for the heroic feats that would later define his legacy. His upbringing in Kabzeel, under the watchful eye of his father, equipped him with the resilience, courage, and faith needed to face impossible odds. These formative experiences remind us that greatness often emerges not in the absence of adversity, but because of it. For us today, Benaiah's origin story is a reminder that our circumstances, no matter how difficult, can prepare us for greater things. The hardships we face, the lessons we learn, and the people who guide us are all part of the journey God uses to shape us into who we are meant to be. As Benaiah stepped into the pages of history, he was not merely a product of his upbringing. He was a man ready to act. His legacy is built on 3 legendary feats, each one a testament to his courage, resourcefulness, and unshakable faith. These acts weren't just heroic in their own right. They carried profound symbolic meanings that echo through time, challenging us to confront the giants and lions in our own lives. The first feat, conquering the Moabite warriors. The Bible tells us that Benaiah struck down 2 mighty warriors of Moab. 1 Chronicles 11 verse 22. While the text doesn't delve into the details of this encounter, the Moabites were known to be fierce enemies of Israel, often clashing with God's people. To face 2 warriors at once required not only exceptional skill, but also extraordinary bravery. Imagine the scene, 2 seasoned fighters standing against 1 man. The odds were overwhelming, but Benaiah didn't hesitate. He stepped into the fight, armed not just with weapons, but with the confidence that God was with him. This feat symbolizes the challenges we face when opposition seems to come from all sides. Life often throws multiple problems at us simultaneously: financial struggles, health crises, and emotional burdens. Like Benaiah, we're called to stand firm, trusting that God will empower us to overcome even the most daunting battles. The second feat, the lion in the snowy pit. Perhaps the most vivid of Benaiah's feats is his encounter with a lion in a pit on a snowy day. 1 Chronicles 11 verse 22. This isn't just a story of survival. It's a moment of unmatched courage and faith. Picture it: the freezing cold, the ground slippery with snow, and a ferocious lion prowling in a confined space. Most people would run the other way, but Benaiah chose to step into the pit. Why? Because sometimes the battles we face don't wait for ideal conditions. Sometimes we're called to fight when the odds are against us, when the environment is hostile, and when fear is at its peak. The lion represents the wild, untamed fears that lurk in our lives. It's the challenges we dread most, the ones that seem impossible to defeat. Yet Benaiah's story reminds us that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to act in faith despite it. By stepping into the pit, he demonstrated that with God's strength, even the most intimidating adversaries can be conquered. The third feat, defeating the Egyptian giant. Benaiah's final recorded feat is his battle against a towering Egyptian warrior. The Bible describes the Egyptian as armed with a spear like a weaver's beam, a weapon both massive and deadly. Benaiah, by contrast, approached him with only a staff. 2 Samuel 23 verse 21. Imagine the scene. A giant looms over Benaiah, armed with superior weapons and strength. Logic and reason would say this was a fight Benaiah couldn't win. But instead of retreating, Benaiah snatched the spear from the Egyptian's hand and used it to defeat him. This encounter is rich with symbolism. The Egyptian represents the overwhelming systems, forces, or circumstances in life that seem unbeatable. The staff in Benaiah's hand might have appeared insignificant, but in his faith-filled hands, it became the instrument of victory. This reminds us that God often uses what we have, no matter how small or inadequate it seems, to bring about extraordinary results. Each of these feats speaks to universal struggles and the faith required to overcome them. The Moabite warriors symbolize the external battles we face, opposition, conflict, and the pressures that threaten to overwhelm us. The lion in the pit represents our internal fears and the courage needed to face them head-on, even in the harshest conditions. The Egyptian giant highlights the moments when we feel outmatched, reminding us that with God, we can overcome the odds. Together, these stories form a powerful narrative of resilience, faith, and victory. They remind us that our challenges, no matter how insurmountable they seem, are opportunities for God to demonstrate His power through us. How can we apply these stories to our lives today? Face your fears with faith. Like the lion in the pit, our fears often seem most threatening when we're at our weakest. But stepping forward in faith, even when conditions aren't ideal, allows us to experience God's strength in profound ways. Trust God with the odds. The Egyptian giant was bigger, stronger, and better equipped than Benaiah. Yet the victory wasn't about who had the better weapon. It was about who had God on their side. Remember, that God often works through the unexpected and the seemingly insignificant. Persevere through multiple challenges. Life doesn't always hand us one problem at a time. Like Benaiah facing two Moabite warriors, we may feel surrounded. But his story reminds us that with God, we can tackle even the most complex challenges simultaneously. Benaiah's feats weren't just physical triumphs, they were spiritual victories. Each act demonstrated his faith in God's power and his willingness to act in alignment with that faith. For us, his life is a call to action. When we face overwhelming odds, we can remember that courage is found not in our strength, but in God's ability to work through us. These stories also challenge us to reflect on how we respond to the battles in our own lives. Do we avoid the pit because it's cold and uncomfortable? Do we back down from the giant because we feel outmatched? Or do we step forward, trusting that God will give us the strength to prevail? Benaiah's feats were not just moments of bravery. They were milestones in a life lived with purpose and faith. They remind us that courage isn't about never feeling fear. It's about choosing to act in faith despite it. They show us that no matter how overwhelming the odds, God can bring victory through those who trust Him. As we reflect on these stories, let's remember that the same God who empowered Benaiah is with us today. Whether we're facing lions, giants, or Moabite warriors of our own, His strength is sufficient. Benaiah's life wasn't just defined by his heroic feats in battle. It was also marked by his unwavering loyalty and service to two of Israel's greatest kings, David and Solomon. Through his relationship with these leaders, Benaiah became a pivotal figure in the history of Israel, embodying courage, integrity, and a deep commitment to God's purposes. His story offers profound lessons on loyalty, leadership, and the moral complexities of serving under authority. Under King David, Benaiah rose to prominence as one of the elite members of David's mighty men, a group of skilled and fearless warriors who played a crucial role in defending Israel. Benaiah's courage and proven track record in battle earned him the role of commander over the king's personal bodyguard, known as the Cherethites and Pelethites, 2 Samuel 8 verse 18. This elite unit served as both protectors of the king and enforcers of his justice. David's reign was marked by periods of internal and external turmoil. From rebellions to threats from neighboring nations, Israel faced constant challenges. As commander of the royal guard, Benaiah was entrusted with the king's safety, a responsibility that required not only physical strength, but also unshakable loyalty and discernment. Benaiah's loyalty to David wasn't blind allegiance. It was rooted in his understanding of God's anointing on David's life. He recognized that serving the king faithfully was part of his service to God. This mindset is a powerful reminder of the importance of aligning our earthly responsibilities with our heavenly calling. Benaiah's loyalty and integrity were further tested during the transition of power from David to his son Solomon. As David's health declined, political tensions rose, and factions within the kingdom sought to exploit the situation. Adonijah, another of David's sons, attempted to seize the throne by gathering supporters and proclaiming himself king. 1 Kings 1 verses 5-10. While many were swayed by Adonijah's ambitions, Benaiah remained steadfast in his loyalty to David and the divine plan for Solomon to succeed him. When the prophet Nathan and Bathsheba alerted David to Adonijah's actions, David reaffirmed Solomon as his chosen heir and instructed a small group of loyalists, including Benaiah, to secure Solomon's anointing as king. Benaiah played a critical role in this pivotal moment. He joined Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet in escorting Solomon to Gin, where Solomon was anointed king before the people. 1 Kings 1 verses 38-40. Benaiah's proclamation, Amen. May the Lord, the God of my Lord the king, so declare it. 1 Kings 1 verse 36. Demonstrated his unwavering support for Solomon's reign. After Solomon ascended to the throne, Benaiah's role shifted from protector to enforcer of justice. Solomon inherited a kingdom that required swift and decisive action to consolidate power and eliminate threats to his reign. Benaiah was tasked with carrying out two of the most controversial actions in this period: the executions of Adonijah and Joab. Adonijah, despite initially being spared by Solomon, later sought to undermine Solomon's rule by requesting to marry Abishag, a move that Solomon interpreted as a political threat. 1 Kings 2 verses 13 to 25. Benaiah was ordered to execute Adonijah, ensuring the stability of the kingdom. Joab, David's former commander, was another complex figure. While Joab had been a loyal servant to David in many ways, his actions, including the murders of Abner and Amasa, had made him a liability. When Joab sought refuge at the altar, Solomon commanded Benaiah to deliver justice. 1 Kings 2 verses 28 to 34. These actions reveal the moral complexity of Benaiah's role. As a servant of the king, he was bound to carry out commands that upheld the stability of the kingdom, even when those commands involved difficult decisions. His unwavering obedience, even in morally challenging situations, highlights his trust in God's ultimate justice and plan. Benaiah's relationship with David and Solomon offers valuable insights into the nature of leadership and the importance of loyalty. Serving with integrity. Benaiah's service to both kings was marked by integrity. He didn't waver in his commitment, even when faced with political intrigue and personal risk. His life reminds us that true loyalty is grounded in principles, not convenience. The cost of leadership. Benaiah's story highlights the weight of leadership, especially in moments of transition and conflict. Serving in a leadership role often involves making difficult decisions that may not be popular, but are necessary for the greater good. Trusting God's sovereignty. Throughout his service, Benaiah demonstrated an unwavering trust in God's plan. Whether protecting David or securing Solomon's throne, he acted with the confidence that he was fulfilling a divine purpose. Benaiah's loyalty and service to David and Solomon have profound applications for leaders today. In any position of influence, whether in the workplace, community, or family, we are called to serve with integrity, courage, and a commitment to justice. His story also reminds us of the importance of supporting those in authority while staying true to God's principles. Like Benaiah, we may find ourselves in situations where loyalty requires us to act decisively, even when the path is difficult. Through his relationship with David and Solomon, Benaiah cemented his place in history as a man of unwavering faith and exceptional service. His story demonstrates that true greatness isn't just about individual achievements, but about how we serve others and align our actions with God's purposes. Whether standing guard over a king or carrying out justice in the kingdom, Benaiah's life was marked by courage, loyalty, and an unshakable trust in God's plan. Benaiah's life wasn't just about battles or service to kings. It was a living testament to the power of faith and courage in the face of adversity. His story holds timeless lessons that resonate deeply with the challenges we face today. As we reflect on his journey, we find practical wisdom for navigating our own struggles, staying resilient in the face of impossible odds, and leading with integrity. One of the most compelling aspects of Benaiah's story is his unwavering faith. Whether he was battling warriors, lions, or giants, Benaiah's confidence didn't come from his own strength or skill. It came from his trust in God's power. In our own lives, we often face situations where the odds seem stacked against us. Whether it's a personal loss, a financial crisis, or an overwhelming task, it's easy to feel defeated before the battle even begins. Benaiah's story reminds us that faith is the key to facing these challenges. Faith doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means choosing to move forward despite it. Just as Benaiah stepped into the pit with the lion, we are called to step into our struggles with the assurance that God is with us. His example teaches us to trust in God's plan, even when the path ahead is uncertain. Benaiah's life is a masterclass in resilience. Time and time again, he faced situations that seemed impossible, fighting 2 Moabite warriors at once, battling a lion in a snowy pit, and confronting a giant with superior weapons. Yet in each instance, he emerged victorious. What set Benaiah apart was his refusal to let fear or doubt dictate his actions. Instead of focusing on the obstacles, he focused on the opportunity to trust God and act courageously. For us, resilience means refusing to give up when life becomes overwhelming. It means seeing challenges not as barriers, but as opportunities for growth. Like Benaiah, we can learn to rely on God's strength rather than our own, trusting that He will equip us to overcome even the most daunting trials. Throughout his life, Benaiah demonstrated what it means to lead with integrity. As a commander in David's royal guard and later as a trusted enforcer for Solomon, he carried out his duties with unwavering loyalty and a commitment to justice. Leadership, whether in the home, workplace, or community, requires making tough decisions. Benaiah's story reminds us that true leadership isn't about power or recognition. It's about serving others with honesty and fairness. His life challenges us to prioritize integrity over personal gain, to act with courage even when it's difficult, and to remain faithful to God's calling. Benaiah's life offers practical guidance for navigating the challenges we face today. Faith is the foundation of courage. Before we can act with courage, we must first trust in God's power. Benaiah didn't rely on his own abilities to defeat the lion or the giant. He relied on God's strength. Face your fears head-on. The snowy pit wasn't an ideal place to confront a lion, but Benaiah didn't wait for perfect conditions. He acted when the moment called for it. In our lives, we often wait for the right time to face our fears or take a step of faith. Benaiah's example encourages us to act now, trusting God to provide what we need. Resilience comes through action. Resilience isn't just about enduring hardships. It's about taking proactive steps to overcome them. Whether it's seeking help, making difficult decisions, or stepping into an uncomfortable situation, resilience requires action rooted in faith. Led with integrity. Whether you're leading a team, a family, or simply your own life, integrity is essential. Benaiah's loyalty to David and Solomon demonstrates the importance of serving with honesty and fairness, even when the tasks are difficult. Life is full of lions, giants, and snowy pits. We all face moments when the odds seem insurmountable, when fear whispers that we're not enough, or when the challenges ahead seem too great. But Benaiah's story reminds us of a simple yet profound truth. With God, nothing is impossible. Whether you're standing at the edge of a daunting challenge or already in the middle of the fight, remember that God is with you. Like Benaiah, you can step forward in faith, knowing that God equips those He calls. Benaiah's life leaves us with a powerful legacy, one that challenges us to trust God in all circumstances, to act with courage even when we're afraid, and to lead with integrity no matter the cost. His story isn't just an ancient tale. It's a call to action for each of us. It's a reminder that no matter what we face, we can overcome it through faith, resilience, and the strength that comes from God alone. Benaiah's life was more than a series of heroic feats or acts of loyalty to kings. His legacy stands as a beacon of faith, courage, and integrity, qualities that remain timeless and relevant to this day. As we conclude this exploration of his story, let's reflect on the impact he left behind and how we can apply the lessons of his life to our own journeys. Benaiah's faith wasn't confined to moments of battle. It was the foundation of his entire life. From his upbringing in Kabzeel to his service under David and Solomon, Benaiah demonstrated unwavering trust in God's sovereignty. Faith, for Benaiah, wasn't passive. It wasn't a feeling or a fleeting thought. It was an active force that compelled him to step into pits, face giants, and remain loyal even in the face of great personal risk. His faith guided his decisions, strengthened his resolve, and empowered his actions. Today, Benaiah's faith challenges us to examine our own. Are we willing to trust God when the odds are against us? Do we believe in His plan even when the path seems unclear? Like Benaiah, we're called to live a faith that acts, a faith that steps forward even when the outcome is uncertain. Courage is perhaps the most defining trait of Benaiah's story. He didn't shy away from danger. Instead, he confronted it head-on. Whether it was a lion in a snowy pit or a giant armed with superior weapons, Benaiah's courage wasn't born of confidence in himself, but of confidence in God. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward despite it. Benaiah's life reminds us that fear is natural, but it doesn't have to define us. When we trust in God, we can find the strength to face challenges that seem impossible. For modern audiences, courage might look different. It could mean standing up for what's right in the workplace, having a hard conversation with a loved one, or taking a leap of faith toward a new opportunity. Whatever the context, Benaiah's courage inspires us to act boldly, knowing that God is with us. Benaiah's service to David and Solomon is a masterclass in integrity. He didn't waver in his loyalty, even when the tasks he was given were difficult and morally complex. Whether protecting the king, enforcing justice, or leading others, Benaiah acted with a commitment to righteousness and fairness. In a world where shortcuts and compromises are often tempting, Benaiah's integrity reminds us of the importance of staying true to our values. Leadership, whether in a family, workplace, or community, requires a foundation of trust, and trust is built on integrity. His story challenges us to act with honesty and fairness, even when the path of integrity is harder. It's a call to lead not for personal gain, but for the greater good and in alignment with God's principles. How can we apply the lessons of Benaiah's life to our own? Here are some practical ways to draw inspiration from his story. Face your lions with faith. Each of us has lions in our lives, fears, challenges, or obstacles that seem insurmountable. Like Benaiah, we're called to confront them head-on, trusting that God will provide the strength we need. Act courageously in uncertain times. Courage isn't waiting for the perfect moment. It's stepping forward in faith, even when the conditions are less than ideal. Whether it's making a tough decision or pursuing a bold goal, Benaiah's life reminds us to trust in God and act boldly. Led with integrity. Whether you're leading a family, a team, or your own life, integrity is key. Benaiah's commitment to serving with honesty and fairness challenges us to prioritize what's right over what's easy. Trust God's sovereignty. Benaiah's life was a testament to trusting God's plan, even when it wasn't fully clear. In our own lives, we're called to do the same, to believe that God is working all things for good, even when the outcome seems uncertain. The lessons of Benaiah's life aren't confined to the pages of history. They speak directly to the challenges we face today, reminding us that God's principles are timeless. His story encourages us to live with faith, act with courage, and lead with integrity, no matter the circumstances. Benaiah's life also reminds us that greatness isn't measured by fame or recognition. His name might not be as well known as David's or Solomon's, but his actions left an indelible mark on history. In the same way, we're called to live lives of purpose, trusting that our faithfulness will leave a legacy that matters. As we reflect on Benaiah's story, the question isn't just, what did he do? But, what will we do? Will we face our lions, trust God in our snowy pits, and stand boldly in the face of giants? Will we lead with integrity and act with courage, even when it's hard? Benaiah's legacy is a call to action for each of us. It's a reminder that no matter what challenges we face, we're not alone. The same God who empowered Benaiah is with us today, equipping us for every battle, guiding us through every trial, and calling us to live lives that reflect His glory. So, as we conclude this journey through the life of Benaiah, let's take his lessons to heart. Let his story inspire us to face life's challenges with faith, courage, and integrity, knowing that with God, all things are possible. Because, like Benaiah, we too are called to greatness.